This is going to be a quick recap video of the Excel UK Finals, which I went to Saturday, so it was a really good event. So I did a little prediction video, so it'd be criminal not to do a follow-up. So let's go through this bingo card here. First of all, Giles did bring a fur coat, so we'll go green if it happened. Ben actually brought 2 decks of cards. Super interested in talking to him about memory stuff. We did have an Adventures of Alice case. Will came 5th. I don't know if Elliot moaned about VLOOKUPs. I'm just going to assume that he did. Tech fail, we didn't really have any tech fails from seeded players. I mean, I had 1 tech fail, which I'll talk about later, but it wasn't a massive deal. Live stream definitely went down at the start. Guest case author, we had Giles. I count him as guest case author. The winner of a round decided in 20 points. Let's quickly check this one. All right, I don't think we had a single round decided in 20 points, but the overall scoreboard decided within 11 points. So I'm going to kind of take that one. Bit cheeky, but I'll take it. AI theme song. We did have an AI theme song playing at the start. We didn't have a London Underground case. I couldn't believe it. That was one of my #1 predictions. I assume we had a round between race to the finish. I certainly did it. I don't know if there was one on the live stream. I think that is it. Oh, the event did finish late, and that was it. So we didn't get any lines, almost a diagonal down here if Ha would have come 3rd, but way too strong. I also should have predicted my Monte Carlo thing. Doing a weighted average of people's scores was silly. I should have really taken who comes first most often, which was 239 times Ha, which actually happened. He came first. And then the next most likely person to come first is here, which was actually Lorenzo. I had him as 4th because the weighted average pulled him down because people scored more points in the lower end of the bracket. But yeah, Lorenzo was most likely to come first. And again, in my simulation, Ha only comes first 1 more time than Lorenzo, and they were decided by 11 points. So I think that's actually a pretty good simulation. I just kind of did a weighted averaging of scores wrong. After that, I should have probably just stayed with this 3rd column, and the next most likely person to come first was Chris Clark. He came 3rd, so this would have actually determined the order. And then the next most likely person to come first would be this 96, which is Esther. But we start to have to, I think we start to have to take into account some of these second places. So out of the biggest second place finishes here, we get these 3, which is Ha, Chris and me. So that would make me next, which would be 4th, which is exactly where I came. And following the same method, you would actually get Will 5th, which is bang on what happened. It's just this was a crappy method. But anyway, let's quickly go run through the day of what my experience was. So first case was this Giles case. Opening it was a bit intimidating because you're faced with this giant screen and I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on here? What's important? What's not important? Same as the case, we have all of this text to read through. Now, I love this because reading it on a second go, it's actually really funny and very entertaining. But live, it's quite a distraction because I kind of don't know whether I need to read it, what's important. We also had this like level thing, which is new, where you can click to go to a level. So yeah. These pictures as well over here are great, but very obnoxious when you're trying to like do workings, especially because there's a reflection on them, because the pictures here, you do workings out here, but when you get to this point, you're actually in the reflection of the picture, like all the way down to here, so it's just, you can't click cells and you end up having to spend time deleting them and then not knowing whether they were important later, so it's a risky play. Anyway, the main theme of this one was to like count the number of cells in these coats, but then all different kind of column lengths. And we also have these like gaps between the coats. So if you just try to count across, I mean, one of the bonuses is just count all the cells here. If you just count across, you're going to capture all of these little cells in between, which will give you a count, which is not what you want. So quite tricky. And the first question was actually really hard. But once I had a way to pull out the first question here, the rest was easy because my method of pulling it out in the first question carried over to these, so I could just change the calculation slightly and it made those instant. Question 4, I fumbled a lot because I tried to kind of put it into this tab, into this table, and then back into the other table. I think I just got slightly confused about the layout, but again, once I got there, it was quite easy. Level 5, I did something very kind of silly. This is an exact calculation like we had in deep sea diving, where you take the row and column difference, whichever's bigger is kind of your diagonal distance, you times that by 1.4, and anything left over you times by 1 in this case. And in the deep sea diving case, the best way is to just make a quick let. But in my panic, I think I default to like my old ways of doing things, which was to do the row here, the column here, the row difference, you know, in the next cell, and I had to like delete this picture because that was in the way, and spill it out. So I ended up with the final cost here. And then one of the bonuses, you need to do it for like all dancers. So I should have just done the lambda, had it in one cell, and I could have answered some of the bonuses. Question 6, this cost me 3rd place just by itself. So I had a fair bit of time when I got here. The question was basically to find these formations and then find the formation names. So the formation names are here. So you basically need to find out which cells have a number in here, and then does that match up to all of the cells in any of these rows. So what I did is I just pulled out with an offset with a width and height of 16, and that pulls the whole grid. So I'm just gonna pull that shorter for you here so you can see it nicely. So that's essentially the dancer's formation. I then just did a 2col of the address names. Again, I've got a picture here. 2col of the address names, 2col of what's in there, and then filter these address names where there's a 1, because it means there's a dancer in the formation. And I can probably just conditional format that for you there. And then this is what I tried to do. I just tried to say by row is number X match my list of where a dancer is. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this table, I'm saying by row, so row by row, X match all of my cells here where a dancer's in to that table, and I got this calc error. So I spent, a good couple of minutes doing this and couldn't figure it out. All I actually needed to do is wrap this in an and I get where it's true. So it's true here. So I just need to XLOOKUP that on this list, and that would have given me all of the answers. On reflection, I obviously need to understand by row and by col a bit better, because I have an arrays problem, and I think there's a lambda that people use with an I instead of a Y here that solves this problem. It's not a problem I've ever run into before. Annoyingly, I did spot it about 30 seconds after the time ended, and that would have given me an extra 210 points, which would have been huge because I finished the first case at like 650 and I think Ha finished at 880, so there's almost 200 points in it. I also didn't realise that question 7 was actually easier. It looked really complicated, so I just didn't bother with it, but it was essentially just, there's 4 moves and it's telling you move 3 rows and 3 columns across if it's that move, so all you need to do is find the cell of a dancer. You can just look it up in here with sort of a two-way lookup, and then just adjust the row and column by whatever the move here is. So that was actually quite easy. I spoke to Chris Clark after. He skipped level 6 and saw that this one was easier, so he gained 200 points there. If I'd have finished this level 6, which I was so close to, I'd have got 210. I think Lorenzo actually had the same problem as me. He just missed this by, again, like 30 seconds. He had a slightly different approach. He did a concat of all of these and then check if that is equal to a concat of all of these by row, which was probably a slightly more efficient way. Another thing about case 1, which threw me off, is we had this hint sheet here, so I will just show that. And this is essentially your hint of like, question 1, 2, and 3 should be between whatever number, so you can get a guide to whether you're on the right track. Now, that's great. I would prefer as a competitor for it just to be laid out question 1A, B, C, whatever. I kind of had a bit of a puzzle finding where each question is. It's obvious now looking at it, but at the time when you're in a panic and you grab this bit of paper to check your answers, it just took a little bit of time to find which one was. And most annoyingly, I only use this when the questions got a bit harder, and this has an error in it on question 5. It tells you that one of the questions should be less than 60, but the actual answer is 100. So I doubted my solution and kind of double, triple checked it, assumed that the answer sheet must be wrong, and moved on. I can't complain though. Everybody has exactly the same situation as me when they are doing these things live. So it's completely fair battle, and I lost fair and square. I just need to get a bit quicker and more efficient with a few things. Okay, case 2, I also flopped a little bit because we had a Harry case, and Harry is, in my opinion, notorious for including information that you might not need, and you have to kind of decipher where you do need the information or not. So on this first question, we had a prefix and a suffix, and we needed to find the prefix to get the first word and find the suffix to get the second word. So we had words here, whether they're what they mean, and then whether they are a prefix or a suffix or both. So I went down a silly kind of 5-minute waste of time filtering this table for where it's either a prefix or both, and then either a suffix or both, because I assumed that mattered. And I thought that you could get things the wrong order because you have Kirk here as both a prefix and suffix. I thought that, if you don't do this right, you might end up with village white instead of white village. So I went down that whole route, really didn't understand why the prefix and suffix was important, and then just realized it's not. All you're doing is looking up both of these in here and doing that, and then you get the answers. So I just got confused with kind of red herring information that wasn't necessary. I also then made a howling error in in this bit, again, this is my panic, and obviously I need to take like reading a bit slower. So it says the first characters of answers in games 1, 3 and 5 are V, H and P. So 1, 3 and 5, yes they are V, H and P. But I read this as in questions 1, 2 and 3 in my rush and thought, hang on, V, yes, not H, not P, but this one is H. But this second word is P, so maybe my prefix and suffix does matter. So I have a V, a P and an H, but they're not in the right order. So I just kind of crumbled and started to think I had question 1 wrong. And I didn't even do the bonus because I thought I couldn't do it because I had bonus 1 wrong, but I actually had it correct. I could have just very easily done the my most of lambda to get A as the most common letter, and it comes up 4 times. That would lead you to A4, which gives you kind of the information to get to bonus 2, which says, you know, ask the invisible monkey from bonus 1. So yeah, that second bonus, all it was doing is counting how many cells are on the French side of the river, which is this side. Would have been easy, so I missed out on, again, 70 points there. Once I got to question 2, there was a trick that this emoji is length 2 and the others are length 1, but that didn't slow me down at all. I spotted that pretty much straight away. There's also a rogue arrow here. That didn't slow me down, and I have a lot of lambdas to deal with this, so I literally blasted through this. My model was scalable to this question, and on this question you'd move around the map, and every time you'd hit food you'd multiply up by 1.1. So you'd start with 1 and just keep multiplying up by 1.1. If you hit food, what do you get at the end? That was easy. And then question 5 is exactly the same thing, but every time you land on a weapon you multiply up by 3. So I did that with kind of like a scan and reduce. Then my answer 5B didn't match, and then I saw this thing here. For this level, if the army's in a city on its final move, give the value of the weapons multiplier when the army enters the city before it resets to 1. So kind of, if the end cell was a city, give you the weapons multiplier. If not, I didn't know if it meant give you 1. So I tried to read this here. There's another information for it here. So I didn't see this at first, spotted it late. It then says, if an army lands in a city, the weapons power up is applied to the damage caused in that city. So that was really confusing. What I didn't see is that this is actually an image. So if I move that across, there was actually some more text there, which would have helped me. Again, this is the whole issue I have with putting like images into a case that overlays text. And it also says in here, multiply applies only in the next city, at which point it resets to 1 from the next cell onwards. Having that information, the same information in 3 different places, written in 3 different ways, just confused the hell out of me. Again, I can't complain because everybody's under the same circumstances as me. I tend to try and really look into things in detail and understand what's going on, but with it written 3 times, it just took me too long. I kept going round in circles trying to figure out what I needed to do, and just ended up leaving them all at what it would come out with the food answer. So I probably ended up not getting many of these right. But anyway, I got to level 6. My lambda actually tells me when I go out of bounds. So I started saying, okay, if out of bounds with the up arrow, do a down arrow. If it's the right arrow, do a left arrow. And then I noticed that the out of bounds arrows for the up left here was the same, but a different arrow. And then realized that what this is trying to tell me is you could hit a wall, or you could hit a border that's a corner, in which case you go back. So this is just like Lana on ice. I really don't like that this is in an image as well. I had to spill the arrows out manually. Again, everyone's under the same circumstances, doesn't matter, but it was just annoying having to type them out rather than having like a reference table for them. My rule with lambdas is basically if it comes up twice, I will put it into the lambda. So I think as well as the out of bounds condition, I need to have something that tells me which out of bounds, as in like up, down, left, right, and then a combination of those where you hit a corner. Then it would be much easier to write a table that has the out of bounds cell. So for this one, it would be kind of up and left, and therefore the arrow is now this instead. So I'll build that at some point. Anyway, I spent too much time thinking I could do this because I had an out of bounds condition in my lambda until I got to those 2 arrows, realized it wouldn't work, kind of panicked, went up to do some bonuses. Again, I've already explained what happened on bonus 1 and 2. Bonus 3, again, this relates to level 1, so I wasn't sure about the first letters of everything on level 1. I'm not sure if it was correct with this prefix suffix, which is really annoying because this exact same question came up on another Harry Watson case called Wobble, where you have a word list and you need to find all the words you can make. And I have a good lambda that sort of is not specifically for this, but does solve this problem very quickly and efficiently. So it's very annoying I didn't get to that. There's just so many points I just missed out on, left on the table. There's 130 there, probably left another 50 or more on the table on my question 5. So yeah, terrible start to the first 2 cases. And then the third case, my favorite of the day. This is where I had a bit of a tech issue, but thankfully it only lasted again another maybe 3 or 4 minutes, so it didn't slow me down too much, and I don't think I could have got any more points out on this case at the end anyway. But let's quickly talk about what my tech issue was. So the whole intro to this case was about going mad, and unknown to me, I had a stuck Alt key on my laptop, and when you press Alt equals, you get an auto sum. So I wanted to say equals this time minus this time, and then multiply it up by 24 and 60 to get the number of seconds. That's the solution to this question, and I know that because I've done this plenty of times. It's now an easy question. What happened was, because I had an Alt key stuck, I pressed Alt equals, clicked this cell, then tried to say minus this cell, and because it was wrapped in sum, it didn't work. But me knowing this is a Harry case, and he's built a dynamic case where you can't use certain formulas and certain formulas act differently, and this being a Mad Hatter case that's supposed to send you mad, I thought it was intentional, so I laughed and thought, he's done a case where you type a formula and it doesn't give you the right formula, so you have to figure out how to overcome the questions with your formulas not working quite how you intend, so you really need to understand the mechanics of formulas really well. So I thought I'd need to do, sum of the first number minus sum of the second number. But as I was clicking around, if I just keep an Alt key held at the minute, I was pressing escape and it just wasn't working because that's like Alt and escape. So it was like just moving to different tabs. So imagine your Alt key is stuck down. I'm struggling for like 5 minutes. Looked at everyone else, they didn't seem like they were as confused as me, and I thought, hang on, maybe this isn't intentional. So I kind of called Giles over and was like, my thing is not working, look, I can't do anything. And then somehow I must have like unjammed my Alt key and it started to work. And then I was like, oh, okay, it's fine. In this case, I found kind of actually very easy. I think me and Lorenzo are in the same boat. We found this one quite easy and the other 2 cases really hard. I guess it's just what suits your style and your Lambda set. There was no nonsense pictures in the ends here. It was a kind of quite a standard layout, which I liked. I know how to pull out capitals and lowercase and stuff like that. Didn't use lambdas for this, just did it without them, and it's yeah, this case was fine. Maybe I'll do a walkthrough. I kind of cheated a lot of the questions to make them much easier. So this one, you're moving with a load of arrows around these cards, and which one do you land on? I just copy pasted this a bunch of times, so I had a whole sheet full of cards. Only took 30 seconds, and then just took the start card from somewhere in the middle of that giant grid, and then just followed the arrows with one of my lambdas. So I just moved around a giant grid instead of having to do modular, arithmetic around this table to move along. Then level 7, I got this out quite quickly, but manually. So on this one, cards have a sight, so this 5 of hearts could see everywhere up to the walls. So the way I did it is I manually just kind of copied the 5 of hearts to everywhere it can see, and I just did that to each card. There wasn't too many, so it only took a few minutes really, and then just picked where I was in the maze, and it gave me the card. There's loads of questions on this one, so it's worth quite a few points. Now, silly me, I have a block out map lambda, which I think I've shown before, which would do this for me, but I would need to say what kind of a blocker is. And I just thought these were normal green borders. I didn't realize the borders are actually, if I click into one, they are a 1. So I could have actually done this with a formula quite easily. I kicked myself after when Lorenzo said he did it with a formula, and I said, how the hell can you do it with a formula when there's a border? And he said, oh, the borders have a 1 in. I went back to the case and saw it even says here, note the maze walls have been populated with a 1. So my overall takeaway from these 3 cases really is read the questions, at least what's in bold, slowly, but do the questions fast. So I really need to work on that and think about the psychology of trying not to panic. I think that's my biggest weaknesses at the minute. Yeah, and there's a really fun riddle in this case at the end. I haven't fully solved it yet, but there's fully hidden sheets in this file. There's a riddle to try and find where Lana is in this spreadsheet, and I haven't solved it yet. I don't think anyone has solved it. Yeah, we'll see if I get there. I say this was my favourite case. Then the first one, Giles' case, I really loved that. The whole dance formation things was great. And then probably Harry Watson's. That said, Harry Watson's wasn't like my least favourite case. I really enjoyed that case as well. I enjoyed all of them. And I thought the whole event was really good. So slightly disappointed in my performance, but it is what it is. It's how it goes. Hopefully I'll do better next year. And in the other Road to Las Vegas cases. So yeah, that's my recap. See you next time.